You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. We talk with adventurers from around the globe to bring you the inspiration and motivation you need to get started in the outdoors or to keep you moving if you're already there. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Today's episode is 1100. That's kind of a milestone. 1100, and it is a revisited episode with Ben Grannis and, of course, Mason Gravely. And they're talking about Ben's exploits of biking 6,000 miles around the United States. It's going to be a fun one. Thank you for listening in today. And please do remember that if you enjoy this episode, share it with a friend. Please tell someone about the Adventure Sports Podcast. Now, here's Mason.
So tell us, I remember the last conversation we talked, it was a lot of back and forth, so I don't know if it'll be that way this time, but, you did this huge bike tour across the country twice. And for this, folks have heard a little bit of the overview, but tell us real quick, what has happened between when we first talked and now? What have you been doing?
Yeah, so when we first spoke, I think I had just gotten home from finishing up the ride in San Diego, and I just flown back to Connecticut, which is where I am now, at my folks' place. And shortly after I saw you at the athletic, I went off on a road trip of actually comparable length to my bike trip, but in a car, to interview a bunch of athletes who are sponsored by Maxxis tires, to talk about the cause that I've been riding for. And the goal is to create a bunch of videos on each conversation to help promote both the athlete, Maxxis, of course, and most importantly, the mission of ending distracted driving and helping people have healthier relationships with their phones.
Wow.
So I just got back from that, and 2 weeks ago. So it was 4 weeks on the road doing that.
Jeez, no kidding. That was wild. That is wild, man. So what was that like? How did that compare to the bike trip in the sense of like enjoying places and, I don't know, just being out there?
It is different because I was in a car most of the time. It was about 100 hours of driving, which is, I think, the most amount of time I've spent in a vehicle. But I had my bike with me and was able to ride in some new states. So I rode actually through this, like from Connecticut down the East Coast, and then went west towards California. So I rode through a lot of new states in the South. So I got to ride my bike in Oklahoma and New Mexico. I didn't ride that much because it was a pretty busy trip, but it was cool to feel some sense of familiarity kind of going through the middle of the country where, I was again alone with the cars around, obviously, but it wasn't too different of an experience from being on a bike. It was a lot less enjoyable because everything's better on a bike. But I was kind of having a little bit of a trip down memory lane, even though I was in a different place than I actually rode. But
was there anywhere you saw on your trip on your bike trip that you did in 2021 and 22 that you had to go back by for the drive across the country?
I overlapped a little bit on, I forget what interstate it was, but it was in Idaho. I was going up to Ketchum, and there was a small section of highway I drove by Snowville. I think it's still in Utah, but it's right on the border. Snowville, Utah, which is a place where I stayed. So it was like that was the only overlap really, on the actual route. But it was really crazy because I was, different time of year and way different context, but, really interesting to kind of see it again from a different angle.
I noticed I did a trip to like 30 national parks on bike. And I remember I saw most of them for the first time. And I was just like in tears every day about how gorgeous and beautiful it was. And I think part of that was because I got there by my own power, in the sense of like a lot of effort to get there with biking, going up hills, feeling the weather, smelling the smells. And I go back and visit a lot of these places now, and it's just it's still amazing and beautiful, but it's not nearly as impactful. One, because I've seen it before. Two, because I'm like listening, I don't know, I'm like eating snacks and driving, and I don't know, it's like less vibrant or vivid than I remember when I was on my bike. Do you experience that at all?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. It's exactly like you just said. It's less vivid. It's when you know that you've arrived at a place without any powered vehicle. You can kind of walk among all the other tourists with this thing in the back of your head of it's a weird like satisfaction in knowing that you've accomplished something, and you've arrived, if you're on the other side of the country from where your home is, you've gotten there without needing anything. And it's taken months or weeks, however long it is, but it's such a unique experience. And I think it's a little bit trippy to go to places that you've flown to in the past, but you're on a bike this time, because you're like, what? This is a totally different context. So it's a little bit disorienting.
Yeah.
In some ways, but yeah, I mean, it's unlike anything else. It's pretty hard to describe, I think.
And I will say, if you've seen somewhere first that you saw just traveling, flew there, drove there, and then you visit that place by either long distance walking or hiking or biking, I'd say that time you go on your own 2 feet or by your own power is a lot more vivid. Because there were a handful of places that I've experienced that way, and it is trippy, and there is this not like pretentiousness about, oh, I got here on my own 2 feet, but you're experiencing it in a deeper way, because it's like this a lot longer sense of anticipation, obviously a lot more sweat most of the time. Obviously people work their butts off to save up for trips to go to cool places and to see something. And there's, that's definitely something you should always be proud of. But something about getting there by your own power is really satisfying. I didn't know if you experienced that driving through very recently after a lot of these experiences.
Yeah, definitely. And it happens. You don't need to go far to have that feeling either. Like my first ever 100-mile ride, which was absolutely horrible. I did it in Connecticut. It was just like an up and back to this lake in Connecticut that it's Lake Warramug, and my dad and my sisters did a triathlon up there when I was 12 or something. And so I remember it being this long drive, kind of annoying to get there, and then that was a halfway point for this bike ride. And to just show up and start to see signs, like when you start seeing like, oh, you're entering this town, or like this town's in 5 miles, it's like you have this kind of whoa moment of, I've gone so far. And if you just keep going, you get there, and that's just, it's such a crazy concept, like so simple, but until you experience it, you don't realize like how powerful it is.
That's cool. That's really cool. So yeah, gosh, what else was I going to say? I was going to say something about that.
I guess we're wrapped up here then, huh, Mason?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. See you later. No, I know we've already talked, so it's like old news to us. But tell us like what this experience was. You spent, if all the stats are still correct from the deck you sent over, and just like the outline is, you did almost 6,800 miles on your bike, 124 days on the road, and raised like $40,000 for Textless Live More. And this was basically from mid to late August, 2021 through almost a year-long journey. I know not all of that was traveling on a bike, but you did some incredible stuff, biked from your home on the East Coast to the West Coast and down the West Coast, to all basically raise awareness for distracted driving. What was so important to you about distracted driving, and why do this?
Yeah, so before August of last year when I started riding, I was living in Northwest Massachusetts, and I had gotten into cycling over the past 3 years, and distracted driving became very close to the front of my mind. And um, I really wanted to ride my bike across the country after I left this job that I was doing up there. The season was going to be over in August, and I wanted to do an adventure that I didn't think I could do before, on a bike. And I was doubtful about my ability to do it by myself, so I reached out to this nonprofit, Textless Live More, who's very closely related to the camp. And I know it was started after a woman who was riding cross country was killed by a distracted driver who was only texting for 4 seconds.
Mm.
And this was in 2013, and her friends and family started the nonprofit. So I've gotten to know her. Merritt is the woman. I've gotten to know her family pretty well, and reached out to them, and I wanted to give back to this cycling community and also help make the roads safer, and also give me something to hold me accountable as I did this thing that I did not think was physically capable for me before doing it. So it started as sort of a peripheral, like, okay, I'm kind of connected to distracted driving and have my own self-doubts about this journey. And along the way, I got, just through conversations, having a lot of growth while being on the road solo. And yeah, all these conversations with people, I became a lot more closely connected to the mission of, ending distracted driving and helping people have healthier relationships on their phones. And you mentioned this ride was over the course of about 14 months. I had about 6 months off because of a knee injury. And it was actually during that time that I was off the bike injured where I think I became most connected to this cause, because I was talking to people who had been affected by distracted driving, people who have lost family members, and all of these unnecessary deaths. And I had the time to sort of process everything that I had experienced so far. And now that the ride is formally done, I feel more compelled than ever to continue spreading this mission and just talking to people about it. Because I think having conversations, even just, a casual conversation like we had at athletic or whatever, those are the things that are going to make the difference. It's not telling people to put their phones down. It's just having a real human connection is what's gonna do it, I think.
Absolutely. And now I know your campaign is not just it's primarily about texting and driving, but there's other types of distracted driving. What are some of the, obviously text less, live more, leans into texting and how dangerous that can be. What other areas do you notice that folks are distracted while they're behind the wheel of a 2,000-pound missile, essentially?
Yeah, well, that's a can of worms, right? Because we're all, I think, in some way or another, we all have been, we've all succumbed to a distraction in the car. It's so easy, whether that's opening a granola bar while you're driving, or you got to grab something out of the glove box, or even just adjusting the air conditioner in your car, especially with these cars that have touch screens where unless you are really good at the car, you have to look down to make those adjustments. And I've had some interesting conversations with people where they talked about kids in the car. Yes, having like a screaming baby in the car is distracting, but also having, if you're a teenage driver, just got their license, and you're driving around with your friends who are all on TikTok, or they're yelling at the driver like, "Oh, look at this, look at this." Like, there are so many distractions, and there's no I think it's pretty hard to have a hard and fast, like, no distractions in the car, because I don't think that's ever going to get through to people. Obviously, in a dream world, there are no distractions and we're all perfectly focused. We're not daydreaming, but I think we have to be realistic, at least to start, to get the conversation and get people on board with the idea of focusing on the road and realizing the risks,
Are you excited about autonomous vehicles? What does that make you feel as far as in relation to distracted driving?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mason. I don't think I have enough information or I've done enough research on self-driving cars to know what how that makes me feel about the future. I think if we could fully trust the technology and lean into it 100%, I would say that's great. I think we're still quite a long way off with all of the bureaucracy between having the technology and actually getting cars approved on the road. I mean, I know they're on the road now in testing and stuff, but there's a lot of time between now and then, and I think even when we have self-driving cars, distractions are going to be a problem, because there's no way most of the population is going to have self-driving cars in 10 years.
No, it's gonna take like a century. I don't know, at least 50 years, in my opinion. Maybe not. Maybe it is quicker. I'm excited about that day. I do believe the technology can get there, and where you can do anything you want in your car, and it's going to be safer, because I just Googling some quick stats, like 90-something% of fatal car crashes are due to human error, just mistakes folks make, and I guarantee that it's very high with fatal vehicle and cycling crashes. I'm a bike tourer by trade, bike packer, and the last cross-country bike ride I did was 2020, and I didn't ride the whole way. It was kind of like a relay thing, and one of the few times I was out there riding, I got hit by a truck going really fast, like 60, 70 miles an hour. Never found out who or why, or if they were distracted or if it was intentional, but they sideswiped me. The mirror hit me in the back of the head and knocked off. I still got it at home, and scared me half to death, of course, because it was like a few inches to the right, it would have killed me, no doubt. Like it was that like that, and the person whoever hit me sped up, because they had exhaust pipes on the truck, and you could hear them hit the gas when they drove away, or when they did hit me. They were like, "Oh crap, I hit somebody. Let me get out of here." And so no idea if they were texting or not. No idea if they were just trying to buzz me. You know what I mean? And then got a little too close, or if they were trying to do more than that. So I like to think that no one would intentionally do that, but hoping that was unintentional, and they just you were a young kid or something, fearful, and got away, and scares them half to death to never do anything like that again. But human error is a huge part of it.
Yeah, I wish I could fully believe that it wasn't someone doing it intentionally, but I've heard and seen too many stories of aggressive drivers trying to harass cyclists, and I think it's very much a U.S. problem. And yeah, I don't know if you saw the article in the New York Times a couple weeks ago, just showing the statistics on traffic deaths, and how the U.S. is one of, I think, if not the only country where traffic deaths are not going down.
Interesting.
It's
I didn't
pretty
see that.
sad.
Yeah, golly. Did you experience any of that on your campaign out there to kind of end this distracted driving issue? Did you have any personal, anything happen while you were out there for almost 7,000 miles? It's a long time to be on these fairly dangerous roads.
Oikos presents 15 Seconds of Strength. Here we go. Steve's got a trunk full of groceries and no one to help him.
Oh, that's tough, Jim. Looks like a 5-trip load at least.
He grabs the first bag, the second. Bob, it looks like he's trying to do it all in one trip. He shimmies the door open, steps over the dog. Oh, and he stumbles.
Oh, right into the kitchen without missing a beat. Jim, now that's a man who eats his protein-packed Oikos.
With 15 grams of complete protein in each cup, Oikos Triple Zero can help build strength for every day. Oikos, stronger makes everything better.
Fortunately, no real close calls or anything that seemed like distracted driving. I always ride with a mirror on my helmet, sort of feels like a security blanket, being able to see what's coming up from behind. And, I like to think that I'd be able to get out of the way if anyone was kind of like going over into the shoulder or anything like that. The only thing I had was an aggressive driver who was obviously angry. I was on a bridge in Oregon, and they did the thing called rolling coal, which I'm sure you've either heard of or seen. Where
my dad does it to every cyclist he goes by. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I'm very familiar. Down here in the South, man, it's going to happen. You go out there and ride, you're going to get some coal.
Do you see it regularly? Like, can you describe what it is and like if it's happened to you? Oh,
heck yeah. Did it happen to you a lot?
Just that one time.
Really? Oh, it happens all the time. What it is especially if you're somewhere rural where there's big diesel trucks, it's the diesel engine. If you've ever noticed when you floor a diesel engine, basically press the accelerator all the way down, it spews black smoke out of the exhaust pipe in the back. And I don't know exactly why, like chemically what's going on, but that's what happens. So if you're driving down the road, you ever see a truck just start flooring it and all that smoke's coming out, that's called rolling coal. And so what a lot of these drivers do will get right up next to a cyclist. As they're going by, they floor it and just spew black smoke, like a cloud of smoke all over the cyclist. And I mean, if you're going downhill or you're on like a sketchy road at all, doesn't have a great shoulder, since they're driving the same direction you are, you can be covered in that cloud of smoke for seconds. And like, you don't see where you're going. It can be dangerous, especially like on a bridge or something where there's some danger near you. So yeah, a lot of times you have to come to a stop because it can be a good 3 to 5 seconds of not being able to see where you're going. And if you're going 20, 30 miles an hour, that's plenty of time to hit something. So that's what rolling coal is. Is that what happened to you?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're working hard, you're trying to go up a hill, or like I was pedaling as quick as I could to get off the bridge with a narrow shoulder, it's pretty hard to avoid breathing it in, which is, I think, the worst part.
That is the other.
But I didn't even think about the visibility part, like not being able to see. Yeah. So
yeah, if you're climbing hard, breathing heavy, it's just a crappy thing to do all around. I guarantee the folks that do that have just never actually met a cyclist to realize, they're not bad people. They're just trying to get some exercise, or in your case, travel across country, doing something way cooler than probably anything they've ever done. And I've never gotten it. I hope, because I believe in the good in people, I really hope it's just usually young punk kids trying to have a good time. I think we've all probably done things we weren't proud of at a certain age, before we really started realizing, oh, that's a terrible thing to do. I know I've probably done a few things like that, but I've never actually met anybody that rolled coal on me, but it happens a lot.
Yeah, it would be interesting to have a conversation. I think it just gets back to the general culture around cyclists and other users of the road in the U.S. It's just not. It doesn't seem like there's a ideal harmony between the two groups.
No, and I will say one time there was a guy who rolled coal on me, and I saw the truck. Big old jacked up truck, and it stopped at a gas station a couple miles down the road. And I guess he didn't realize I was going all decently fast and could catch up, and caught up to him, and I confronted him. And I remember talking to him like, "Hey man," I was like, "What was that about?" And he was actually apologetic. So I will take that back. I forgot about that, and I honestly think that's what it is. Hey, here's a fun way to. I mean, my dad, who was a hellion, tells me stories about people walking down the sidewalk and hitting puddles on the side of the road to splash them with mud on purpose. But he's a great person now, but teenage years, 20 years, I mean, he was an absolute delinquent. I mean, no way to get around it. Just terrible kid. Terrible. So there are probably some folks out there that's like, when they really start thinking about it, they're like, you know what, I shouldn't do that. So
right, and that's sort of like texting too.
Yeah.
People are quick to say, "Oh, I've never driven or texted while never done that," and then you start talking about it, like, oh, like everyone does it, and it could be something as simple as
I
changing
don't
your
like this
music, and
song.
then right,
Literally, you
right,
just said that.
exactly.
Yeah, I don't like the song.
Yeah.
Let me switch it. I need to. My kids are asking for a certain song on Spotify, and I'm like, all right, let me look real quick. But
right,
yeah, man. So speaking of that, you didn't deal with that, thankfully. I'm also blown away by how defensive people are when you confront them about texting. The biggest thing, what I notice, is not people speeding up; it's people slowing down dramatically, like in traffic. That hey, I'm running late for work and I got to be somewhere, and people just driving so slow because they're texting. They're trying to quote be safe while they do it, which leads to just really inefficient traffic patterns, almost being dangerous because they're an anomaly with the traffic flow. You know what I mean? They slow way down, or they miss a turn, or it just drives me crazy. Or at a red light, it's a green turn lane, or the turn lane gets green and it takes them 5 seconds. And I'm very quick now when I see someone texting next to me, I just lay on the horn, catch them off guard. Like, hey, that could have been a crash. This is like a safety warning almost, or like a warning horn. Be aware of what you're doing. So
that's my reaction too, and I hope that the connection is made where they realize, like, okay, someone's honking at me because I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing, not anything else. Like, I hope that they understand.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think you're a horrible person, or like the person you're talking to is not important. But I don't think there's anything important enough unless you're texting your mom your last texts ever, because she's on her deathbed, that anything's worth it. You know what I mean? So whatever you're saying, whatever you're talking about can wait. It can literally wait. Nothing's really worth doing something that's as dangerous as drunk driving. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
yeah.
especially when the more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be at doing it in the future and making it more dangerous and being more risky.
Yep. And each time you get away with it and you're fine, it's building the wrong message in your head. Like, oh, well, I was fine the last 5 years of my life. Why is it any different now? But you just have to, you've been lucky if you've gotten away with it that many times, but it only takes a small variable to be out of place or to be in the right place where you either hurt yourself or you hurt someone else.
Yeah, I mean, think about. I know I try not to be a downer because I think the world's safer and better than we realize. But this is probably one of those things where it's actually super dangerous. Sharks get a bad rap, bears get a bad rap. All these things that we kind of think are dangerous, or people's first reaction is danger, actually not that dangerous. Or not, you're never going to come across it, so it's nothing to worry. Like a terrorist attack, for instance, people are absolutely worried about that. It affects 1,000 times less than when you're driving in a country for the first time, or texting and driving. Those kinds of things actually are dangerous, and we're going to confront every day of our lives usually. So this is something that folks need to, especially if you're an adventurer, especially if you like to get out there on the road, and either, even if you're not a cyclist, you're going to be interacting with through hikers have to hike down the road at some point. So it's something we should all be aware of. Someone you love is going to be involved with this, or you yourself are going to be involved with it. So really love what you're doing. Well, tell us about What were you doing during the time to raise awareness for this cause? And tell us about the ride itself. Were you able to enjoy the ride and have some life-changing experiences, I imagine?
Yeah, well, I liked where you were going with not trying to be a downer, because the world is great and this country is awesome in so many ways, and it's easy to get hung up on the negative side of things, and the statistics and how everyone's putting everyone at risk, blah blah blah. But it's really easy to make a change, and I think doing things like going on an adventure, like, could be something small, just getting a sense of what it's like to be outside and find out what makes you happy is going to make a huge difference for distracted driving, but also for just general life happiness. You're not going to be spending as much time on your phone, etc. And I, like on my bike trip, I mean, it was kind of interesting because I would spend 8 hours a day on the bike or so. And as you know, a full day of riding, you're not on your phone because you're riding. And so getting to have that many hours each day where I was just in the elements, no matter where I was, you're just out there experiencing it, seeing it, figuring out where to eat. Like everything is just stripped to the essentials. And that's the same with, I think, any sort of long-term thing. Could be a hike, could be running a marathon or an ultra marathon, anything like that, or something small too, like going on a camping trip where you're only thinking about where your tent's going, what food you're buying, and once you get there, you have a campfire and you just enjoy the time with each other or yourself, whoever you're with. I think that was one of the coolest things for me, was to, I had done some backpacking before and kind of knew what that was like, but to do it on a bike and be out there and have to rely on the kindness of strangers was really powerful. And I think that was probably I think pretty much any touring cyclist will say something similar, that getting to experience the kindness of strangers was incredibly powerful. And it's the result of being vulnerable, because the entire trip you're vulnerable. You're on a bike, you're not safe from anything around you. You're out in the elements, and you're going from point to point where you don't have a home between the start and the end. And that's cool. It's hard to do. But I think if people can get over that first step and put themselves in an uncomfortable situation, they'll see just how cool it is,
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I got to ask you, because bike touring runs in your blood. I don't know if this had anything to do with this trip, but I know that your dad, back in 1977, rode his bike coast to coast in the U.S., and I'm sure that was part of your life growing up. How much did that legacy fuel your own idea to do this?
Yeah, I wouldn't say my dad harped on his experience too much when we were growing up. We definitely heard stories here and there, and he would talk about his bike trip. It was always this sort of nebulous thing. And as I got older, I sort of just thought of it as this kind of crazy, out of reach adventure that would be cool to do. But like I mentioned in the beginning, I never really believed that I could do it myself, because you're riding a bike across what a plane takes 5 to 6 hours, which is just crazy to think about. So it definitely was a source of inspiration, because to be able to do something sweet that one of your parents did is always like that's a fun connection to have. And at the same time, it was like, it wasn't really until I started doing it that I thought it was really cool. It was like a small source of inspiration, but as I was doing it, I was like, oh, this is awesome, that these are very similar roads to what my dad rode 50 years ago.
And what a different country and environment and everything 50 years makes, with how accelerated things have been. I mean, he probably was a little bit more wild, a little bit more, all kinds of things. And
that was only the second year that people were doing organized bike tours across the country. And people had done it before then, but it wasn't a thing. It didn't become a thing until 76. And like that's not that long ago.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, I was going to ask, as someone who's done this, it sounds like your dad didn't constantly harp on it, like you said. So, but it was known. I got to find that balance with my kids, because it's like, do I have posters around the house or like pictures? Do I kind of let it be this mysterious thing I did that they later discover when they're older? Do you feel like the way your dad approached his adventure life was healthy in your household growing up, or you wish you would have done it more, less?
I think so. I think it was good, especially because I have two older sisters, and I think both of my parents' approach to it was appropriate for the range of adventure spirits we have in the house. Yeah, my dad has his bike still in the basement here, so that was like the thing that we could see. We're like, what is this bike from? Like, why is it here? It's so old. Like, what is it even from? And I think it was something where I really discovered what it actually meant for him to do that experience as I was planning, and now having done a long distance bike trip, which I think is, there's no wrong way to raise your kids, Mason. So
I think there are a few wrong ways. I've seen them firsthand. Not my parents.
Yeah, right. Well, in terms of approaching the adventure spirit, I think you'll do what's best for your kids.
Oh man,
I trust you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. You can check in a few years, see how it's going. But no, it's really cool. We don't often get a lot of the folks on this show were or are kind of like first generation adventurers. Maybe their parents were really lightly into it. But I would say, if your dad did a cross country bike ride, that's pretty awesome. Even if that's the only thing he ever did and never camped or went outside another day in his life, it's pretty cool. It's he did it. And so we get a lot of folks on this show that started out, maybe camping or a few little trips as a kid, nothing crazy, and then they take off. So just curious how it did. So maybe tell us a story from the experience that really sticks out to you, whether has to do with the cause or not, but something that really helped you say, this was totally worth it. I'm so glad I came and did this because this happened.
Yeah. I would say it was the last day of riding before, because I rode across the country before the holidays last year, and then I came home for a couple months to rest and stuff before going back out to finish it. And on the last day of riding, I was supposed to get to either Seaside or Cannon Beach, Oregon, and I just left these people that I stayed with through Warm Showers, which is, do you know Warm Showers?
I host on Warm Showers. We have guests.
Oh, you do?
Wow.
Well, I'd love to talk about that maybe another time. But
all right, yeah, it's a lot of fun. We at the very least, folks can camp in our yard, but every once in a while, we usually have them over for dinner. If we really feel good about them and they're really cool, we're like, just stay in our house, because we got two little kids. We got to be careful.
Right. Did you use it on any of your cross country trips?
Yes, I kind of discovered Warm Showers late though in my rides, and a lot of times it just never I was always just out in the middle of nowhere, or
like not in the right spot for a host.
My trip up the East Coast, it was a little more useful because of the amount of towns, the amount of people, right, and not as many just open spaces. But anyway, tell folks about it, or what you.
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit where there's thousands and thousands of hosts who have volunteered, like you said, Mason, either their yard or a guest room or some safe place for a touring cyclist to stay for the night. So I stayed with a bunch of awesome hosts. I mean, I haven't met a host that hasn't been awesome, but I was lucky enough to stay with a bunch during the trip. And on my last day of riding, I was leaving this older retired couple in southern Washington, and I rode about 20 miles, and I realized that my front brake was shot and needed to stop riding. Basically, I had been through a lot of rain in the Pacific Northwest, you can imagine, and the brake pads had worn so much that it was metal on metal, and that's no good. So I had to stop riding, but I was in a pretty remote spot and had to I was hoping to get to the coast because I was remarkably close to the coast, but hadn't actually made it. And I needed to find a replacement part in order to keep riding. So I reached out to a bunch of warm showers hosts in the area. Just once I knew I had to stop riding, sat in a cafe and just started sending out a bunch of messages, made some calls to bike shops. It ended up being that these hosts that I hadn't met reached out to someone who then picked me up from 20 minutes away and then drove me. It was 90 minutes to this bike shop that I had called and realized and learned that they had the brake pads that I needed. They were going to drive me there, pick up the brake pads, and then drive me back to their house and then accommodate me for the night. Just on a whim. Like, this was less than 20 minutes between realizing that I had to stop riding and when they were on their way to me. And it ended up being that the brake pads that the bike shop claimed to have were the incorrect ones. So I couldn't actually keep riding. So these people dropped me off, and I just then took a bus to Portland to fly home the next day. But the fact that I had a bunch of strangers, like, there were other people who were willing to help that were further away, so it didn't make sense. But just the amount of generosity that there is through warm showers, yes, but also there's so many people in the country that have this desire to help people is so cool, and to get to experience that is humbling and really encouraging, I think, for the future, and just to have that experiences makes me want to give back to cyclists and to people generally.
Yeah. That is one of the most common themes on this show, is the realization that the world is good. There's always someone, anywhere you go, that's going to be willing to help, anywhere in the world. Obviously, horrible situations happen. And that's the reality of being on this planet. But those are the exception. I'm confident in saying that those are the exception to the rule. And the rule is people are kind to each other. People want to help. People want to feed you, clothe you, give you shelter, help out in any way they can. You might, pass a lot of people before that happens. But if you're on a bike, you break down on the side of the road somewhere and you got your bike upside down, someone is going to stop to ask if you need some help. Never have I ever had that not happen.
That's one of the benefits of putting yourself in a vulnerable, uncomfortable position, is people recognize that you're in a state where you might need help, and it's a lot easier for people to offer help that way versus if you're suffering next to a car. It's like, okay, well, you have a car, it's a different experience. So it's hard to get to take that step and go out on a bike ride or whatever. But once you do it, you're kind of paying admission to the ride of kindness.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So what do you think, other than, not texting and driving, which you already knew ahead of time, what do you think this experience taught you? What else do you think it taught you about the world or about yourself?
That's tough. It's there's a lot of lessons packed in the corners everywhere. I think, one thing that I struggled with on the ride is social media, and that's something that I'd still kind of have it's a weird tug of war with, because I was raising awareness for distracted driving. How do you gain traction nowadays with some cause that you're working towards? Social media, it feels so backwards to promote what I was doing and now what I'm doing on on social media because it it doesn't make sense. So I think that was something that was hard for me, and I learned that maybe it's more important to just focus on the face-to-face interactions and worry less about how much traction a cause is getting online.
Interesting. Did you find it as a distraction while you were out there on your trip?
So I had my phone mounted on my handlebars, and sometimes I would forget to put do not disturb on while I was riding. Not because I was worried about being a distracted biker, but because it's distracting to see your phone light up when you're riding. It kind of takes you out of the moment. So I think that was probably the most it affected that. But I did get a few phone calls that I needed to pick up while I was riding. So it was nice to actually know that those were happening so I could pull over and talk to them. But, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know what the answer is.
So what's next for you? I know you to wrap this experience up. I don't know to wrap it up. Maybe you got more planned, but I know that you went around the country interviewing people. What is your hope with that? When should folks be looking out for that? What are those videos and kind of the content you're making there? And then what's coming up for you?
Yeah, so the interview trip was 21 interviews, and they're all about 45 minutes long, but they're getting boiled down to like 2.5-minute videos with kind of like the highlights of them, and they'll be posted by me and the athletes that I interviewed on a weekly basis starting in the last week of December. And when each of those is released, there'll also be a podcast episode that comes out with them with the whole audio, because there's a lot of content that is good but won't make it into the videos. So I would just say keep your eyes on Eyes Up Ride on Instagram, or eyesupride.com for those. And I'd love to do more of those. I love meeting new people and talking to them about what they love, and also about distracted driving, because it's an issue that is only going to be diminished by continuing to have those conversations. So I'm hoping to do more projects like what I did last month, and speak to young people about this experience and the mission, and hopefully make the road safer for all of us.
Absolutely. Anything encouraging you see, well, no pun intended, coming down the road with trends or just things around this cause, distracted driving or just safety out on the road?
Yeah, I will say that seeing that article in the New York Times about traffic deaths was a blow to morale.
Yeah.
But the conversations that I've had in person with people have all been encouraging, because even people that I've talked to who are openly admitting to texting and driving, we're able to get to a point in every single conversation where they recognize that what they're doing is a risk for them and their family and other people. And so that's encouraging, how open people are, at least the people that I've talked to. And it seems like people are really aware of their phone use generally, which is a great first step. And getting to a point where we're all aware and take action on our phone use is that much easier with the awareness already there. So getting people to understand what they love, whether that's running or paddleboarding. I see all your paddleboarding on Instagram. It's amazing. But finding something like that where you're excited to be away from your phone will be a lot easier, knowing how much you're on your phone already.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's encouraging.
Does that even out if I send a nice text, but I'm driving?
To him?
No, that doesn't.
To someone else?
No, I'm just kidding. That doesn't even out. You can't, even if what you're texting is really nice and friendly and hopeful and encouraging, don't do it while you're driving. Park
No, nothing's that important.
Nothing's that important. Well, Ben, thanks so much for joining again. And yeah, man, maybe we'll cross paths again here soon.
I hope so, Mason. You got to come back up to the north, or I'll go to Florida or something. Who knows?
Let me know. It's a good time of year to be here. And I'm sure I'll be headed up your way soon with the brewery at some point, usually a few times a year. So
Cool. Thanks, Mason.
All right. Here's to not losing this episode. Let's hope for the best. All right, backing it up as soon as we get off. But all right, man, I'll talk to you soon.
Sweet. Thanks, Mason. Have a good day.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Hey, friends, thank you so much for listening in today. Here's a question for you. Who do you know that would make a fantastic guest for the Adventure Sports Podcast? Someone that loves adventure, believes in it. Maybe they've done something big. Maybe they just have a lifestyle that's filled with adventure. Regardless, if you know somebody, please send them our way. You can fill out a form on our website, adventuresportspodcast.com, or send us an email at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. Take care.